Welcome to the Bible Savvy Podcast, a weekly conversation about how to understand, enjoy, and apply God's Word. It's time to jump into a new passage from the Bible Savvy reading plan.
Hey, everybody. I'm here with Pastor Courtney and Pastor David. David, you've got a question for us.
Question of the week, guys. If you could invent your own holiday, what and when would it be? And I am assuming that everybody gets off work and school for this day, whatever you want it to be.
Okay, so a real holiday that people actually celebrate. It's not one you find on some, website that told you today was, whatever day. It's like, we're going to do it. We're going to commemorate it.
Yes.
All right.
Ooh.
What do you got, Courtney?
Oh. Well, I feel like you've got to pick something that includes like your favorite things, right? Like that's essentially what you're...
I would hope so.
What you're looking for.
At least something you like. As opposed to something you dislike.
Yeah, but it's hard to like,
it's like when you like National Tax Day, April 15th.
I
hate this, but
But like, and it would... Clayton, you get to go first because I'm still thinking.
Well, okay, so here's the challenge. I've been asked this before, so people may have heard my answer. But I think it'd be great to have a bring your pastor a milkshake day.
Oh.
And honestly, it's next Sunday. I mean, it doesn't matter when does it happen? I don't know. Next Sunday. Every week, if you ask me, next Sunday.
Oh, wow.
And you already get that
like
day off.
that.
So,
That's good.
just show up at church.
That's good. Yeah. That's good. All right. Well, mine would be, I just remembered this recently because March Madness just ended a week ago when this is airing. I'm wearing my Kentucky shirt in honor of this question. But on the Thursday that March Madness starts, there's like a bajillion basketball games that are playing. And for years, all I want to do is be like, I wish I had this day off because all I want to do is sit on my couch and watch college basketball. And so I would deem it a national holiday of March Madness Day, everybody on that Thursday, and maybe even Friday too. Maybe it's a 2-day holiday now that I'm thinking about it.
There
It's
you go.
first round.
I mean, it's like Thanksgiving.
But everybody's got to stay home. Clayton has to watch college basketball all day. It's required.
All day. I like basketball.
And,
one of my struggles with the holiday thing is that I feel like I need to pick something that other people would also enjoy.
Oh, no.
Like,
No, not at all.
That's just not a thing.
Okay.
No, they're going to like it because they're getting a day off. They're going to be so grateful. They're like, I don't care. I don't like March Madness. I'm not going to work. That's fine.
That's right.
Did you ever take like PTO? They ever take time off to do that?
I think I have, actually. I can't remember like a specific time. I do remember in college skipping classes to watch games. Like just be like, no, I'm not missing. This is going to be a buzzer beater game. I'm not going to class during college, Yeah. But I do love it. It just, I don't know. It's that whole idea that, the underdog, the 16 seed couldn't beat the 1 seed and everyone, no one's ever heard of this college, but maybe it might happen. And like everybody gets really into it and you got brackets and stuff. I don't know. It just gives me all the warm and fuzzies. So let's make it a holiday.
All right.
Okay. All right. Well, so mine's, I'm going to kind of riff off of a holiday that really does exist, but I don't think it's really celebrated anywhere except the great state of Iowa.
Oh,
or maybe
I knew it. I saw it coming.
It might even be the city of Des Moines. So all of my fellow Des Moinesians, which there are quite a few who listen to this because they come up and talk to me at church. We celebrated May Day, May 1st, with actually delivering May baskets to people. And I feel like that was unique
What's
to
a
where I
May
grew up.
basket?
Exactly.
We're getting drawn in. She's just baited us.
We walked right into it.
So you make up little, like, we used to take little cups and like put pipe cleaners on them to make them so you could carry them. And then you fill them with like candy and like flowers and all kinds of fun things. And then you go drop them off at the doorsteps of like all of your friends. It was like little
like
fun,
Valentine type idea, like you're giving candy and a thing
little
to a friend.
candy and things like that to a friend. And it was super fun because you'd go like ring the doorbell and then try to get back to your car so they didn't catch you and whatever. But you told them who it was. You wrote a little card on there.
Wait, so Ding Dong Ditch Day?
Essentially, yeah. But
we could do that.
Ding Dong Ditch with presents.
Oh, well, we could do
you have to leave
You
something.
could have a Ding Dong Ditch Day where it's like you get to choose. Do you leave something nice or
you
a
just
bag
took
on
my
fire?
Holiday. You can't take my holiday. My holiday is pure and beautiful and Des Moines.
Okay.
See, people used to
Which
go
is
and
all
like
things pure and beautiful.
do that, but they would like teepee, or egg a house.
You
but
have
now
lived in
toilet
evil
paper and eggs
places.
cost too much to do that. So now we're getting May baskets.
May
and-
baskets.
I'm so sorry
Give you
that
nice-
you grew up in such evil places and that I grew up in. I mean, there's a whole, you guys, is this heaven? No. It's Iowa, where we leave little baskets.
The one state devoid of sin. It never fell in the fall
and
of man.
we drop them off at each other's doorsteps.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Okay. All right, we should probably move on.
There we go.
To Matthew 27. Little different tone than a holiday. Matthew 27 here. We're at the end of the book of Matthew, and if you've been following along, you know that this is the last week of Jesus' life. So he's been in Jerusalem, and he has been the pressure has been mounting, right? He's been going head to head with different religious leaders and religious groups, and kind of turmoil's been going around him. And it has finally come to the point where the kind of Sanhedrin there has decided we're going to arrest Jesus. And he has been brought before first the Jewish council. Okay, so the kind of elders of Israel kind of have a sham trial and say, we want to put this guy to death. He's blaspheming. And then he gets sent to the Roman governor. So it's important to remember Israel is occupied territory. The Roman Empire has invaded, and the Jewish authorities don't actually have authority. So if they want to get anything done, if they want to truly punish somebody, they've got to go to the Romans and say, would you do this? So they go to Pilate, is the guy's name, and say, we want you to execute this guy. He's committed crimes under our law, but you're the only one who can execute someone, so would you do this? And so they essentially say to him, he is a king who is leading a revolt, which would be something the Romans would be very concerned about. So we're going to read about this trial here, starting in verse 11, going to verse 26.
Meanwhile, Jesus stood before the governor, and the governor asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" "You have said so," Jesus replied. When he was accused by the chief priests and the elders, he gave no answer. Then Pilate asked him, "Don't you hear the testimony they are bringing against you?" But Jesus made no reply, not even to a single charge, to the great amazement of the governor. Now it was the governor's custom at the festival to release a prisoner chosen by the crowd. At that time, they had a well-known prisoner whose name was Jesus Barabbas. So when the crowd had gathered, Pilate asked them, "Which one do you want me to release to you? Jesus Barabbas or Jesus who is called the Messiah?" For he knew it was out of self-interest that they had handed Jesus over to him. While Pilate was sitting on the judge's seat, his wife sent him this message: "Don't have anything to do with that innocent man, for I have suffered a great deal today in a dream because of him." But the chief priests and the elders persuaded the crowd to ask for Barabbas and to have Jesus executed. "Which of the two do you want me to release to you?" asked the governor. "Barabbas," they answered. "What shall I do then with Jesus, who is called the Messiah?" Pilate asked. They all answered, "Crucify him." "Why? What crime has he committed?" asked Pilate. But they shouted all the louder, "Crucify him." When Pilate saw that he was getting nowhere, but that instead an uproar was starting, he took water and washed his hands in front of the crowd. "I am innocent of this man's blood," he said. "It is your responsibility." All the people answered, "His blood is on us and on our children." Then he released Barabbas to them, but he had Jesus flogged and handed him over to be crucified.
All right, let's talk about the O and comma. Observations. What do you guys see in this passage?
Right away, where Jesus says, he asks him the question, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus says, "You have said so." And then in verse 14, but Jesus made no reply, not even to a single charge, to the great amazement of the governor. Like, that is stone face. Like, he's putting it right back at him, right?
Yeah.
Like, well, you've said so.
Yeah.
Just leaves it quiet.
I always think, what do you make of somebody who won't defend themselves? It is, I bet you Pilate was prepared for a lot of different things, right? Like, he's seen people plead for their life, or, try to make bargains, or say, I didn't do it, or what. I mean, probably lots of things. But to have someone be accused of something and then simply not defend themselves has got to be a more rare response. And especially if someone kind of seems like they're composed, like they're not just like, I'm just so beat up and I've lost the will to do anything. It's like someone who is self-possessed in that moment and yet does not defend. It's a hard one to figure out.
Do we know verse 15? talked about it's the governor's custom at the festival to release a prisoner chosen by the crowd. Do we know why that existed? Was it gaining favor with the people, just trying to appease them?
I don't know. I think so I haven't done any like deep research in this, but my guess would be something along the lines of trying to appease the crowd, right? Like so if you've got an oppressed population and you say, "Hey, let me kind of throw you a bone," then when the festival's going on, they're less likely to get up in arms and whatever, you know. There's also just in general, like in ancient kingship and rulers, there would be this sense of when there's a celebration, you do something magnanimous, right? Like you show, your generosity of spirit by doing something for the people. You throw them a feast, or you release a person, or what. There's that sense of like, this is what a good king does. I don't necessarily know that that's the case, but there are definitely other situations where someone will just say, I'm gonna show my merciful, rule here, and they do it at a festival.
Yeah.
I always that moment in verse 19, while Pilate was sitting in the judge's seat, his wife sends him this message, and I was pictured as like, modern day, it's like a text, like, oh, don't have anything to do with that, innocent man. For I have suffered a great deal today in a dream because of him. I'm assuming she sent this through someone, obviously, that he didn't pick up his phone. But just that moment of like women's intuition that's thrown in there for one thing.
Yeah.
The acknowledgement of a woman within the middle of this story.
Who actually got it right.
Quite interesting.
Yeah, that innocent man.
Got it
like
right.
very specific. That innocent man, not that man. That innocent man.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. There's definitely the details pile up to show that Pilate really is avoiding the thing he knows is right. You know what I mean? I don't have a lot of evidence, you guys. Like, are you sure you don't want me to release him? Like, he's just doing all the things to sort of like show like, no, you really know this isn't just. And then to top it off, like your wife had a dream that basically said, no, he's innocent. You're supposed to look at Pilate then and say, wow, you really messed this up. You had every chance in the world to do it right, and you did it wrong.
Yeah. So verse 25 stuck out to me when I was reading it. It hit me, but the people answered because Pilate says, "I'm innocent of this man's blood. It's your responsibility." All the people answered, "His blood is on us and on our children." And from first glance, it's like, you're guilty, and you're the reason he's going to die. But I kind of wondered if there was like a little bit of language, rhetoric that Matthew wrote this in a way that makes you go, wait a second, the blood of Christ is on the guilt of these people and their children applied correctly. If there's like a little bit of a play on words here,
like he's like a double meaning if you can figure it out kind of thing,
right? Like if like they're guilty, and also his blood will cover these sins.
I've never read it that way. I mean, there is precedent for double meaning in these stories. Like when the chief priest says, "What if we release? It's better for one man to die than for the whole people to be destroyed." And it's like, oh yeah, that's actually what Jesus is doing, like from a theological level. Or even we're going to release a prisoner, but the innocent's going to suffer. Like theologically, it's more than Barabbas; it's us, right?
Yep.
So maybe that's there. One thing about this phrase, though, that's really worth noting is it has been tragically misused in church history because people would take it and say, look, these are Jewish leaders, and they're saying the guilt for Jesus's death is on us and our children. And so they would use that as a way of saying all Jews from here on out are Christ killers, and they would use that as an excuse to drive them out of their cities or kill them or persecute them in some way.
Wow. Okay.
And so it is a verse that especially taken out of context or used in certain ways, has been very, very damaging. So it is one of those ones that you say, okay, we've got to be careful how this is read. You know what I mean?
Wow. It's interesting.
Pilate keeps using Jesus, who is called the Messiah. Like that's a repeated phrase. So when he is calling out to them, he's always calling him Jesus, who is called the Messiah.
Yeah.
So Jesus, who is the one who's come to save you. Jesus, who is, so would that have been more of a political, he's trying to baited a little bit.
I think
like
so,
there.
right? Like he says, "Are you the king of the Jews?" The phrase Messiah, like we have a lot of things attached to that. At the baseline level, and someone in that time would have said, "Oh, that's your title for a king." So they're like when you say king of the Jews and you say Messiah, they functionally mean the same thing for someone in that context. So so he is saying to this group of people, it's a little dismissive of them, right? Like there's a little bit of like, are you going to own this? Like this guy says he's your king. Yeah, this is your king. What do you want me to do to your king? Like there's a little bit of like, cultural tension that's going on there. And he's also responding to their accusation. Like, you're telling me this guy is like, you know what I mean? So he keeps bringing it up because it's like the issue at hand. If he actually is rebelling, then whatever. And that's part of why they have to disavow him. So like they're trying to protect themselves. So sometimes we say, what's the motivation of whatever? It says there's self-interest involved. But some of the self-interest is self-preservation, right? Like it's not just they want to keep their power. They're also saying, look, if we get if Jesus gets a crowd worked up and they're following after him, they think he's the king, they try to put him on the throne, well then the Romans are going to look at that and what are they going to do? They're going to crush all of us. And they do. Like in 70 AD, the same thing happens and this false Messiah it means that the city is destroyed, the temple's destroyed, they're kind of re-exiled there. So it's a real life possibility that if they don't say he's not our king, then the Romans will say, we're just not going to deal with this anymore. We're taking you out. So there's some of that going on too.
Yeah. So verse 26, it says he released Barabbas to them, but he had Jesus flogged and handed him over to be crucified. And it's a little, this whole moment is very confusing. Pilate's like, my hands are clean. I want no role in this, but he's also still having him flogged and having him crucified. Yeah. Part of me wondered, like, well, did you have to have him flogged? Like, it could just be like, all right, well, he's yours, and then, you can crucify him. But it just felt like it was a next step of saying, and then it felt supplementary instead of just this is part of the process. You get flogged and crucified. It was, he had Jesus flogged. Yeah. Like he added this step to prove to these guys, like, well, I hope you like me. Like I'm doing the thing, but I'm innocent. But I'm still doing the thing. Yeah. It's very strange to me.
It is. And it's like a leadership weakness here, right? Like he is just capitulating to the pressure and you know what I mean? Like the guy has no spine. And it's, you think this is the Roman governor, you know what I mean? Like if anybody's going to be the strong people in the world, it's the Romans, right? And the guy's a pushover in terms of all of this. And so it's like the one place you're supposed to go for justice and none can be found because he didn't have any courage,
Because there's a mob with a loud voice.
Yeah. All right, let's go on to one of the M's in comma, meditation, okay? This is a great passage for using that imagination technique that we talk about. These narrative parts, especially here in the last week of Jesus' life, are really valuable for saying, what if I was there? And usually what I find helpful is to actually do it more than one time. Obviously, we're going to give you about 45 seconds, but to put yourself in the place of different people in the story is really valuable. If you say, what would it be like to be in the mob? The pressure that you're feeling. What would it be like to be Pilate? What would it be like to be the religious leaders? What would it be like to be Jesus? What would it be like to someone who's just watching a guard, right? Like these sorts of things. And some of it's uncomfortable because you're like, I don't know, I don't like what they did, but it does help you say, okay, why would they have done that? And where do those things exist in me? And how would you get caught up in this sort of thing? There's some value in that. So what I'd recommend as we do meditation is to pick one character in the story or one perspective from the story and pray through it and say, what would it have been like to be there? All right, let's talk about the other M in common. Let's talk about message. If you're going to sum this up in a principle, what would you say?
Yeah, I went with, even in talking about meditation and taking the place of someone in the story, when Pilate washes his hands, that's just such a significant move to me. And I said, you can't just wash your hands of bending to popular opinion. You don't get to just wash that off.
So verse 18, it says, for he knew that it was out of self-interest that they handed Jesus over to him, and all Pilate's actions in response were very selfish about his image and everything. So the message that I put down was that selfishness put Jesus on the cross, and Jesus' selflessness set us free.
My message is looking at that kind of exchange between Barabbas and Jesus. And so I said, the king is punished, so the rebel goes free. At one level, this is a very literal parable. It's not exactly a parable, but it's a parable of what happens for all of us. The king is punished, but the rebel goes free. All right, let's talk about the A and comma application. If you're going to respond to this with action, what would you do?
So my message was, you can't just wash your hands of bending to popular opinion. And my application was to really do an examination. Where have I done that? Sometimes I think we live in a really politically charged world right now. We live in a world with lots of opinions. And I think there are times when it feels like the easier thing to do is just to bend to popular opinion instead of standing up for what's right. And throughout this, Pilate knew it was right. His wife sends him the message, don't do it, so listen to those, those people in your life, those warning signs, but also just know, you don't just get to wash your hands of it. You have to repent of it. There's a repentance that comes with that. And it's really easy to, brush off some of those things. We all, you see something on social media, you maybe respond to even something. You don't get to just brush that off. There's a repentance that comes with that. There's a turning from what you've done. That seems like a respectable sin sometimes, I think, when you just you kind of go along with the crowd. But where are those places? Where have I said that was just a moment, or that was just a passing something, or maybe I did bend to popular opinion instead of standing up for something that I knew was, biblically correct and accurate. And so just kind of taking an assessment of those things and being more aware of them. And I, it's as I even thought about it, I thought, you have this physical washing of hands. What if when you stopped and did, that's something I do how many times a day, right? What if you stopped and every time you actually physically washed your hands, you thought, is there any place where I have I've just walked away from it, and really I need to stop and repent. And, I don't get off that easily. You can't just wash your hands because you said, well, I did the popular thing, or I bent to peer pressure.
That's good. I feel like mine is in a similar vein to Courtney's, but my message was selfishness put Jesus on the cross, and Jesus' selflessness set us free. My application is to eradicate selfishness in my heart. So I was thinking about, if selfishness put Jesus on the cross, what am I doing to eliminate that selfishness in my own heart and mind? Part of the meditation, Clayton, you said, imagine you were in the mob. And I kind of did that when I was sitting with this passage of, would I have had the courage in that moment to not go with what everybody else is screaming right now? Or would I try to protect my own image? I mean, we know, Peter denied Jesus, when there was pressure. We saw Judas betrayed Jesus when there was pressure. And I started to wonder, I'm like, I can sit here and judge the people for being crazy, but would I have been selfless in that moment? I hope so. But it just got me thinking about my day-to-day stuff and the decisions I make to be selfish, whether that's, what I want to do when I get home from work for myself versus serving my wife or my kids or spending time with them, or, doing the extra errand or whatever. Just there's so much selfishness, I think, that is natural inside of me. So I felt like, man, I just want to eradicate any scent of selfishness in my heart.
Yeah. So my message is, the king is punished, so the rebel goes free. And that's not the sort of message that is oh, and so go do it, right? It's like a deeply profound truth, and part of the application is letting it sink in. So it's Holy Week. This is the week when we really deliberately say, hey, let's let this thing sink in. So the application could be go to Good Friday and really attend to it with your heart and mind. There's also what you're saying, like part of saying the rebel gets to go free is me, is taking ownership, right? Like that you can't wash your hands. So you go and say, no, really, I need to say, I'm the rebel. I'm the one who did this. Because I think there was something, especially if you're familiar with the Jesus story over years and years and years. It's tragic that this is the case, but like we tend to just take it as a matter of fact. Like, well, of course, yes, I know he did that and it's on him and I'm so thankful. But it's kind of like old news that he would actually do that for a rebel, and to have the like shock of if you were there and not in the mob who was like Barabbas, 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 and you just heard like Pilate let go some guy who had like led a revolt and murdered a guy, like you'd be like, what is going on? How insane is that? And Pilate did it out of injustice, but God is doing it in a way that says, no, I made it possible for me to really do this, and you're the rebel and the murderer. You know what I mean? That's a profound thing to let sink in. So taking some time this week to just say, no, let me really absorb that and sit with it for a while. That's my application.
Thanks for hanging out with us. Join us again next Monday for a new episode where we'll be looking at another passage from the Bible Savvy reading schedule. And in the meantime, if you're not following along with the reading plan, check out BibleSavvy.com. Also, you can subscribe and leave a review on whatever platform you're listening or watching on. You can find us on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Email us your questions or suggestions at podcast@BibleSavvy.com. Lastly, tell your friends, and we'll talk to you next week.